Hi, I'm Tamer, and today I'll show you how to write an easy black letter alphabet using just 4 lines. Let's quickly check out the tools that we're going to use today. The first tool we're going to use is my favorite black letter pen, the Pilot Parallel. It comes in a variety of sizes ranging from 1.5 to 6 millimeters and is compatible with a wide variety of inks. If you're just starting, the 2.4 and 3 millimeter pen sizes are a great place to start. I'll be using the 3.8 and 6 millimeter pens today. Every parallel pen comes with 2 ink cartridges, one red and one black. I'll be using the black one. I'll be writing on Strathmore calligraphy paper. I like this paper because it's economical. It does have a slightly rough texture which can add some interesting effects, and it holds up well to any ink I've thrown at it. We'll also be using these black letter guide sheets. I designed these guide sheets to make it super easy to learn black letter calligraphy, and you can get the entire collection right now completely for free by joining my newsletter community at blackletterfreebies.com. I'll also be using a lightbox today. A lightbox is a great tool for using printed guides under your favorite kind of paper. A lightbox can also save you some time and money so that you don't have to keep creating guides on your own with a ruler or keep printing them over and over using a printer. And that is everything we'll need. If you'd also like a list of all of my favorite tools, just head over to blacklettertools.com where you can find a list of all of my favorite pens, inks, and other supplies that I use to write every day. Now, let's start writing. You can draw a lot of really cool lines with these pens that create some really cool effects. But for this tutorial, we're only going to need 4 lines. The first line is going to be a simple vertical line that moves straight down from top to bottom. Super easy. The second line is going to be a diagonal line moving down at an angle of around 45 degrees. The third line is going to be a really thin diagonal line. Now we're going to make sure that we follow the angle of the pen, and that's what's going to keep the line thin. So that's just a line moving from bottom to top along the angle of the pen. The last line is just a horizontal line, and it will move straight horizontally. And that's it. For the purpose of the demo, I'm going to go ahead and label these so that you can make them out while I'm writing them, and I'll mention these numbers as I write so you can follow along easily. This is going to be stroke number 1, or line number 1. The second one here will be line number 2. The third thin line here will be line number 3. And this fourth one here, the horizontal one, will be line number 4. I'm going to turn on the light box, lay the calligraphy paper on top of the page, and I'm going to walk through a couple of points about the guideline first. I'll be posting a full video explaining everything more completely, but I just wanted to give you the background before we get started writing so that you understand how to use these guides. The first thing to be aware of is we have lines that delineate the X height. Here's the top and bottom, and the X height is basically just the height of a letter, like the letter A or C or E, any of those that have a standard height and don't have any bits that extend up above the top or below the bottom, like with an F or with a G. So this is our X height here, and that's this distance from the top to the bottom here. And then we have a line at the top here for the ascender. I'm just going to put a little A there. And then a line here at the bottom for the descender. That's D. So an ascender would be a letter like the letter B or D or F that has a bit that extends above this X height of a letter. The descender area here is for a letter like G, which has a bit that extends below the bottom of the X height line. Each one of these boxes is intended to be the size of a standard letter like A or C or N, for example, to use some new letters. Each of the red lines is intended to show the width of a line as you're writing. That'll make sense in a second. I've also included a little dot here along the left edge, which will show you where to start for some of the letters. That also will make sense as we get going. I'm going to be using the 3mm pen The reason I'm using the 3mm pen is because it's a little bit easier to write with. It doesn't require as much movement with your entire arm. So if we remember, I've got my 4 basic lines. I'm just going to write them here again really quickly. The vertical, the diagonal up, the thin one, and then the horizontal. And again, this is line 1, this is line 2, this is line 3, and this is line 4. To start writing the letter A, I'm just going to start from this point, this dot here on the side, and I'm going to draw a line vertically straight down. Okay, so that's line number 1 up here. Now I'm going to use line number 2 to come down and connect to the bottom line of the X height. So again, this is our X height line. So that's line number 2. Now I'm going to use line number 2 again, starting from the top here, and pull it diagonally down again. And now I'm going to do another line 1, pulling it straight down to connect to this bottom. And now another line number 2. That's it, we've got an A. Now for the letter B, I'm going to start at the top, pulling from the top of the A center box. I'm going to pull straight down, like so, until I reach this dashed line. And I forgot to mention it earlier, but I've included this dashed line here to give you an idea of where to stop the line and begin the second angle. And this will also help keep your letters consistent. So again, I pulled a vertical line. This is line number 1. I'm going to use line number 2, pull it diagonally down. Now we're going to use line number 3. I'm going to pull up. And now line number 2, diagonally down. Still super easy. And now line number 1 again. For letter C, I'm going to start again from the point. I'm going to draw a line straight down to the dotted line. That's line number 1. Line number 2. Line number 2 again from the top here. Straight down. And that's it. That's a quick and easy C. To extend it a little further within the box, I can draw line number 3 and pull it up a little bit diagonally here. For the letter D, I'm going to start, instead of starting from the dot, I'm going to start this time from the very top. Where the top right corner of my pen is touching the top line of the X height. And I'm going to pull straight down again to the dashed line. So with line number 1, I'm going to draw a diagonal line, line number 2. Okay, now the D is similar to the A, but to get that D look, we're actually going to start a little bit higher. So maybe a third of the way from the top of the A center box. We're going to start here and pull a diagonal line straight down. Now I'm going to take from here and pull line number 1 straight down, and it should connect here, or if not, if you have any imperfections as we're writing, you can always just do a quick dab and connect the line to make it full rather than having a gap here. For the letter E, we're going to start at the dot again. That's on the left line for the character. So letter E straight down, line number 1, line number 2 again, just like with the C. Line number 2 again for the E, and we're just going to do a real tiny space here at the top. So we're going to go line number 2 till it reaches that right edge of the character box, and now we're going to use line number 3 going backwards and draw a line straight there to get that E. And again, just like with the C, I can draw a little line here to fill out the space, which is again stroke number 3 here, just a thin little line. Now for the F, we're going to start at the top like we did with the B. And again, I'm going to drag the line all the way down to the dashed line. So line number 1. Now we're going to use line or stroke number 2, pulling it down. Same thing from the top here. I'm going to use stroke number 2 to pull it down to the right edge. Now for the first time, we're going to use stroke number 4 and pull the F straight across to here. I would use roughly midway between the red line here and the edge. For the letter G, just like with A, I'm going to start here at the dot, pull it down to the dashed line. Now I'm going to use line number 2, diagonal, line number 2 again, diagonal. And now I'm going to draw a very long line or stroke 1, reaching all the way down to the bottom, or you can even stop a little ahead if you'd like. I'm going to go all the way to the bottom. Now to finish off the G, I'm going to start the right edge of the pen here, roughly midpoint of the D center line, and I'm going to just draw the line number 2 again, diagonally down to connect the G. Now for the H, top of the A center box, straight down to the dashed line, line number 2. Now starting roughly where the dot is, again, extending to the width of the letter, I'm going to pull line number 3 up diagonally, and it should roughly hit the corner of this red line with the top of the X height box. So that's line number 3. Now I'm going to pull line number 2 down diagonally again till I meet the right edge. And that's it. See, it's a very small line. Now I'm going to use line 1 again. Okay, and then line 2. And there we've got an H. Now I like to connect these, some people don't, but do whatever makes you happy. Now I'm going to do the I, start at the top, and pull a line straight down to the dash line. That's line 1, and then line 2. To draw the dot, all I have to do is start with the left corner, the bottom left corner of my pen. That's the one that's touching the page now. I'm going to start here at the left hand edge, and I'm just going to pull a diamond all the way down, like so. And that gives me the top of the I. For the J, I'm just going to start at the right hand edge, but you could start here as well. Pull just a single vertical line all the way down. So stroke number 1 or line number 1. And then just as we did with the G, roughly halfway, I'm going to start with the right edge and then pull that down to connect the J. I'm going to fix that with just a little dab. Then again, same with the I. I'm just going to draw a little diamond here at the top. And there's our J. To write the K, just as we did with the B and the F, I'm going to start from the very top of the A center box. Pull the line straight down to the dash line. And then use line number 2 to draw the little edge at the bottom. It's easy to get carried away with this and to draw too big. I'll show you. This will be wrong. We don't want to do this. It's easy to draw too big of a K box there, or too big of a space here, and that ends up making the K look off balance or too wide at the top. So what we're going to do is, again, pull line number 1 all the way down from the top, pull line number 2 diagonally, and again we want to start roughly here where the dot is, draw a small line up just till it connects with the top of the X height line, straight down. That's it, all just until our pen reaches the edge, and then come back in with line number 3. So that was line 3, line 2, and then another line 3 in reverse. And that's it. See how it's very small and tight? And then where our pen left off, we just want to come with line 4 horizontally, and then again with line 1 down to the dash line, and then line 2 again. Okay, and there we have a K. And you can see here how this is much smaller than this. So just be aware that you don't have to create a really big space there. Just keep it smaller and tight. For the letter L, you can imagine this one's going to be pretty easy. We're just going to start from the top, draw line number 1 straight down to the dash line, and then line number 2 diagonally. That's it. That's the L. Now the M is a little bit wider. So far this is the first of the wider characters, so it's going to extend a little bit beyond this second black line. So just be aware of that. For the M, I'm going to start from the top of the X height line, pull the same vertical line down, that's line 1. Now the diagonal, line 2, then line 3, we'll go up to the top, line 2 again, down until we meet the right edge. Then I'm going to pull line 1 all the way down to the dash line again, line 2, and then we're going to repeat that last sequence again identically. So I'm going to start here roughly from where the dot would be, pull line 3 up, then line 2 diagonally down, then line 1 vertical, and then line 2 again. And there's our M. It's very repetitive. For the N, just like with the M, I'm going to start at the top, pull vertical line number 1 down, line number 2, line number 3, line number 2, and line number 1, and line number 2. For the O, I'm going to start at the dot, vertical line down, line number 2, line number 2 again at the top, and line number 1. That's it. Connect it. On to the letter P, starting from the very top this time, not with the dot. Vertical line number 1 all the way down to the base. Now we're going to use line 3, connect it with the top, line number 2, diagonal down, And then we're going to use line number 1, and this time we're not going to stop at the dash line. We're going to go all the way to the bottom. Starting from roughly where the dash line is, here using the top right corner of the pen, I'm going to use line number 2 to connect to the base here of the last line that we drew. And there we have our P. And the real key with this is just to make sure that I can see this little pointy tip right there. The Q is going to be an easier version, similar to the P. So the P is going to be starting from the dot to the dash line, line 1, line 2, line 2, and then line 1 all the way down. It's basically the beginning part of a G without finishing with the little tail here. For the R, I'm going to start from the top of the X height line, come all the way down, line number 1, now line number 2, and then line number 3. Hopefully you're starting to see a repetitive pattern here, and then line number 2 again. Moving on to the super S, we're going to draw a line from the top just to roughly the midway point of our X height box. Okay, now I'm going to use a similar version to line number 3, and that's just going to be a horizontal line with the corner of the pen. So I'm going to start roughly from the midpoint here, or from the edge, and then draw a line all the way across. Now I'm going to start again from roughly where I ended with the horizontal line, and I'm going to draw line number 1 coming down to the dot. To finish it off, I'm going to start from the corner of the dash line using the bottom left corner of my pen, and I'm just going to connect right there. And then up here I'm going to draw line number 3 and then line number 2. And there you have a snazzy black letter S. I guess technically this would be a 5th stroke, but it's basically just a straight horizontal line with the corner of the pen. We're getting pretty close to the end here. Let's move on to terrific T, one of my favorite letters. For the T, we're just going to start at the very top of the A center box and pull it straight down to the dash line, line number 1 and then line number 2. And then we're going to use line number 4, just like we did with the F, pull it straight across. Basically, I'm trying to go roughly midway through between this red line and the black line. Now we'll do a simple letter U, starting from the very top of the X height, similar to what we've done before. Stroke 2, going to do the same thing on this side now. So stroke 1 down to the dash line, and then we're going to use line number 2 again. The V is going to be very similar to the U. The V is going to start from the top of the X height, come straight down, line number 2 next, line number 1 again. That's V. For the W, it's going to be very similar to the U and the V. You're going to start from the top, pull it straight down, line 1, line 2, same thing as the U and the V, line 1 again, now line 2. So far we've drawn a U, and all we have to do is pull one more vertical line down, and there's our W. If you want to get super fancy, extra fancy with a W, you can even draw a little line 4 in the middle here. Give it some extra snaz. Now the X. The X is a fun one. It can have some very unusual shapes, but I've simplified it in this alphabet so that it'll be easier for you to write. For the X, we're going to start at the top and draw a horizontal line here at the top. Next, we're going to use line number 1. So this was stroke 4. We're going to use a stroke 1 to pull it down to the dash line. Now we're going to use stroke 2 to pull it down to the bottom of the X height line. Looking good. With the bottom left corner of the pen at the dash line, we're going to pull stroke number 2 down, add a connection there. Now I'm going to use stroke 3, pull it up to the top, and then stroke 2 again, diagonal. Okay, you could, if you wanted, stop there. I also like to throw in a horizontal line for stroke 4. So if you can see, I probably would pull it a little further. If you can see, this is probably the most complicated character that we've written, and you don't have to write it too much typically when you're writing words, except if you want to write xylophone or something like that. Just got a lot of cool letters. We're in the home stretch now. So the Y, it's going to be very similar to the U and the V. Straight down from the top, line 1, line 2, line 1, all the way down to the bottom, and then just like we did before, right, connect here with stroke 2 again. So that was 1, 2, 1, 2. That's it. And then finishing off with the Z. I like to draw fancy Z. I don't know about you, but I think these Z's are cool. I'm going to start from the dot here, pull a line up, draw straight across, stroke 4. Now I'm going to come back with stroke 3 again, down to the left edge of my character box here. And then I'm going to pull another horizontal line all the way to the edge again. Now, I know you may be saying that is the smallest Z, doesn't look appropriate, but this is where we add the snaz factor. We're going to draw a line number 1 all the way down to the bottom. And then just like with the Y, we're going to add a connector here. And with that, we've drawn the entire alphabet, basically with the 4 lines that we talked about here at the top. Thank you so much for black lettering with me today. I really hope you'll give this alphabet a shot. I know you can make some amazing stuff, and I can't wait to see what you create. If you have any questions, please holler in the comments below, and I'll get back to you. In the meantime, have an awesome day. See you next time.